Well, it seems like in the early 50s, you stayed involved in the Democratic Party politics, and then you got a big job, which was the Young Democrats Club president nationally.
Yeah.
How did you get elected to that position?
Well, we went to, Lex Hawkins and I went to the National Convention in 1949. And we got there and we found out it was an old group that their interests were not the same as the returning veterans. That's right. I'm not talking about veterans. I'm not talking about veterans issues now. I'm talking about just, we wanted a Democratic Party that was honest, wanted to help people like we came out of the recession or the Big Depression, and they were just different. And so Lex and I were the ones that formed the opposition group to them. And so by the time the next election came along, I was also chairman of Adlai Stevenson's group in Iowa, and we were for Adlai Stevenson. And so we ran Adlai Stevenson's administrative assistant for national chairman, and then I followed him as national chairman of the club. It's just one of those things. And then we had 500,000 members. After World War II, we had all these returning veterans came back, you know. It was the same way with football. I was at the University of Missouri, and in came these veterans in the middle of the first semester, but they were there in time to be on the football team. The old football team that had been there didn't even make the team. I mean, these guys were in good shape and different ages, you know, but it was altogether different. Things were changing.
You had a membership of 500,000 way before internet. Is that right?
Oh, yes. It was national. I'm talking about national 500,000. We had 500,000 members.
How'd you communicate with them?
Through their state organizations. But I went to most of the, well, I don't know if it was most of them, but an awful lot of state meetings where they have the state conventions. Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to run you up a little bit further down the road here. You made your first run for Congress in 1956, is that right?
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that first run.
Well, it was a five-way race, and the second one was a five-way race also, and it came out 34 to 36, I think, something like that. I had the 34, and so I ran again the next time, and the next time I was nominated.
Neal, the 1956, did you just run in the primary? You weren't the nominee?
Yeah, no, I ran in the primary.
Okay, yeah. And then the following time, I think in 58, was there a special convention because of the way it turned out?
Well, in 58, I had 34%, and the next one I had 29 or something like that. But there was a five-way race then, too. And so we met, and but I was nominated that time.
The special convention?
By the convention.
Was one of the reasons you were nominated because you had the most votes in the primary, or was there something special in the convention you had to do?
No, it was, I had the most votes in the primary, and I think when the primary was over, the party just said, the party convention said, well, he's the nominee, just as they had before.
In 58, did you run against a Republican incumbent?
Cunningham. I was only the second Democrat ever elected in Polk County.
That's amazing.
There was one way back in the Depression for one term, but it was a Republican there. Iowa was Republican. We used to elected one governor between 1860, I think it was, and 1932. One Republican governor is all.
Well, I know that beating an incumbent is not an easy thing to do.
No.
What do you think was important to bringing about a victory in '58?
I don't know. I didn't know I was going to win. But I know one thing that was important. I'm the first one to ever use television in Polk County, here in Iowa. We had 3 television stations. They didn't have enough advertising. They were fairly new, you know. And I went to one of them and asked them to sell me 5-minute programs. And I bought some 5-minute programs. So I was able to introduce myself to a lot of people that way. But in addition to that, my campaign was, well, we got out the vote in Polk County. We really got out the vote that year. And, well, a lot of things go into it. You can't just say one thing. But a lot of things went into it. And I was kind of surprised. Another thing, Story County was in the district, and it was heavily Republican. Heavily Republican. And to everyone's surprise, I ran real good in Story County. Farmers up there and other people, I just ran good, and that helped a great deal.
How many counties were in your district?
There were 6 at that time. Then they gave me 4 counties the next time. They ran me up to Fort Dodge, trying to give me new counties. And but that was a good district too, I thought. And then in '94, of course, they gave me the bad district, which Boswell has this time. In large measure, it's the same district.
Southwest Iowa.
Southwest Iowa.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so you get elected in '58 and start your career as a congressman. Did you have, what was your impression of Eisenhower? You get to serve with him for 2 years.
Eisenhower was just like a general you would expect. He delegated his authority, and he didn't want to be bothered unless he needed to be. But if he had to make a decision, it was the right one. It was the right decision. Whenever he had to. But he liked to play golf, and he would pick out members of Congress to play golf with. And so I liked him, and I got to say he was honest. He looked forward. He had everything there except he had that what you can expect. I mean, a general delivers orders and expects them to be carried out. And maybe unlike some of the others that want to do too much, want to run everything and down to the, not delegate enough, Eisenhower wanted to delegate everything. But he turned out to be a good president. But I'll tell you, the story about Eisenhower that a lot of people don't know is that Taft had the votes at the Republican convention in 1952. The Dewey people were representing, they wanted Eisenhower. So what they did, they challenged the Texas vote on the first ballot. And there's no doubt about it, the Texas vote was all for Taft. But they challenged it so they couldn't vote on the first ballot. And that gave them, by a 1-vote margin, the votes to nominate Eisenhower. So that's, and so Eisenhower really, in many ways, he turned his administration, setting up his administration over to the Dewey people. And they put some pretty good people in office, and it was a lot better. I'm sure it was a lot better administration than it would have been if Taft had.
Oh yeah. Eisenhower, in some respects, was trying to carry on what FDR had started in Truman, right? I mean, he didn't vary a big ways.
I'm not sure he was. I think he just he was president. It was his responsibility. He was interested in the military, but but they didn't own him. And he understood the military, and he kept it from being like it could have gone. But he was there at the time of when we had the Cold War started. As a matter of fact, I was at Fulton, Missouri when Churchill made the speech.
The Iron Curtain?
Yeah, at the Iron Curtain. When I went to the University of Missouri, I went there in a hurry because the war was just over and I wanted to get started. And I stopped there on the way to get mustered out in St. Louis. And so I told them what I wanted to take. I wanted to take 23 hours. They said, you can't do that. I said, I'm just interested in getting enough hours so I can go to law school. And so the president's office was next door. So they said, only the president can let you take that many hours. I said, well, I want to see him. So he let me come in. And I think he remembered me from that. I assume he did. But anyway, when Churchill came to Fulton, Missouri, to make his speech, each university in Missouri could send two students. And so they called me on the telephone and said, you're named as one of the students. So I got to go sit in the audience and hear the speech. It was really something I'll never forget. Yeah.
Did you know it was significant at the time you heard it?
I didn't realize it was that significant. I remember very clearly when he said, talking about the Iron Curtain. No, I didn't realize it was as important as it was. He was announcing to the world, and I didn't realize that we had a Cold War.
Let's go back to your first term in office. You had a chance to serve under a great speaker, Sam Rayburn.
The best. And he had the whole country had such respect for him. And in the Senate, it was Lyndon Johnson who was the chairman, who was the ranking Democrat in the Senate. And the whole country had such respect for them. And for example, the Dewey crowd wanted an interstate highway. Dewey represented the bonding companies in New York. And what they wanted to do was bond for and build the interstates. And then it would have cost 2.5 times as much by the time you paid the bonds off as it would to do what we did. And that was Rayburn and Johnson said, no, instead of that, we'll have a 7-cent gas tax. We'll have a 20-year program instead of a 5-year program. And we'll pay as you go. And the contractors liked that idea too.
Yeah.
I mean, people had respect for them because they were trying to do what you should do. You know? Yeah. And then he was followed by McCormick, and then our speakers up until 1992, I would say 1994, were just considered. They were just considered by the general public to just be good, solid people who will do whatever's right, get it done.
Mike McCormick and Tip O'Neal.
Yeah, all of them back there. They just considered they'll do whatever's